Welcome to the Biohacking Superhuman Performance Podcast. My name is Natalie Needham. I'm a nutritionist, a human potential and epigenetic coach, and I created this podcast to bring you the latest ways to take control of your health and longevity. We cover it all, from new technology to ancestral health practices, personalized interventions, and a very special interest of mine, peptides. Enjoy the show. How do you introduce a guest whose credentials read like a virtual alphabet after his name? A guest who's not only formulated over 500 supplements, foods, beverages, and cosmeceuticals, but who's also patented 10 novel ingredients. You might begin with his moniker, the ingredientologist, or you might just say that Shawn Wells may well be the one guy you want to ask about the latest supplement you're thinking of adding to your stack. He is also the world's leading nutritional biochemist and an expert on health optimization. He is a registered dietitian and a certified sport nutritionist. In all of these things, he has found the time to counsel thousands of people on natural health solutions and has himself overcome some pretty impressive and serious health issues, including Epstein-Barr virus, depression, obesity, anxiety, and the cherry on top of the cake, a pituitary tumor. Thankfully for the rest of us, Shawn has taken on the gargantuan task of distilling all of this incredible knowledge and experience into a new book that is soon to be released. It's called The Energy Formula. And in this episode, I have the great pleasure of exploring Shawn's story, the concepts in his book, and some of the incredible and little-known supplement ingredients that I personally can't wait to try for myself and with my clients. This book should almost be required reading for anybody who's serious about optimizing their health. What's amazing about it is it's not just, you would think with Shawn's credentials, he's going to talk about supplements, he's going to talk about food, but Shawn goes way beyond that. He's talking about lifestyle, he's talking about mindset, he's talking about how do you want to surround yourself to create the environment in which you can be your healthiest and your most amazing self. It's a very rich book. And it's also designed in a way that you're not just sitting there as a passive observer here. The book really reaches out, grabs your hand and says, hey, take part. So it's filled with diagrams. It's filled with surveys. He encourages you to make lists of things that you want to get done, like short little 3 points. What are the top 3 things you took away from this chapter that you want to act on? He describes, he's got this formulators corner where he talks about the different types of supplements you might want to use to address different issues and what to look for in those supplements. So it's not only a great resource, but it's a really great piece of writing that is really actionable. So I'm going to stop talking and let you get into the podcast. You can find him on Instagram at Shawn Wells. So Shawn is spelled S-H-A-W-N Wells, W-E-L-L-S. So just like it sounds. So that's on Instagram. If you happen to be on Clubhouse, he's a great host. He's very, very active on Clubhouse, always hosting great rooms. And to follow him there, it's at Biohacking. And then to order the book, you can order the ebook right now for just 99 cents. It's at energyformula.com. And that's where you can pre-order the hardcover book if you're like me and you really just love having a hardcover book. Or pre-order it for 99 cents. You get the ebook and you also get the fasting guide, which is a great piece of writing. Again, he calls it the secret chapter. And basically, it's a fasting guide, not just for Joe Blow or Susie, whoever. This fasting guide breaks it down for different types of people. So it really gets into the nuances of fasting and how fasting can work for different types of people based on all these different circumstances. I mean, for 99 cents, like he says at the end of the podcast, what are you waiting for? And I totally agree. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys. Please make sure that you leave us a review. And if you decide that you have any comments or questions for me, you know where to find me, but I'm going to remind you one last time. You can find me through my website, natnidham.com. You can find me on Facebook in the Optimizing Superhuman Performance group, or you can find me on MeWe in the Biohacking Superhuman Performance group. On Instagram, I'm Natalie Needham. And on Clubhouse, which I am as well, you can find me there also as Natalie Needham. So thank you so much again for being here and enjoy the episode. Okay. Well, hello, Shawn Wells. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here today. It is a pleasure to have this opportunity.
It's amazing to be here with you, Natalie Nidham.
Yes, thank God, Natalie, and my name. So Shawn and I were introduced by Dasha Maximov, who is a mutual friend of ours. And as we were just saying a minute ago, quite apart from being a fabulous human being, also has an amazing handle. I love her name. It's kind of like, I don't know, she kind of sounds a bit like a Russian spy or character out of a cool movie or something.
Yes, very James Bond.
Very James Bond, yes. So anyway, so Dasha said to me, Nat, you need to meet Shawn. Shawn is doing amazing stuff. And I was like, I'd heard of you and I kind of knew of you. And I was like, no way, Shawn's not going to be on my podcast. And yet here we are. So I'm really, really stoked about today. And Shawn, so for those of you, the few of you who might not know who Shawn Wells is, Shawn has an amazing story of his own journey and how he got to where he is today, and has taken the opportunity to use that story as an incredible backdrop to write this amazing book that's going to be coming out in April. We're recording this in February of 2021, so it's coming out in April, I believe. And it's one of those books, I have to say, I kind of want to buy a bunch of copies and hand them out to my clients and say, this is what we're doing. Just get with the program. So I don't know if you've heard this from people yet, but I'm telling you now, it's going to be one of those books.
Wow, that's a huge honor. And that's what I hope. The book comes out April 1st. It's called The Energy Formula. And I felt like I've spent a lot of my life hating my body, hating who I was, being in insufficient cellular energy states with mitochondrial dysfunction, feeling tired. I've had autoimmune issues where I couldn't get out of bed for 6 months, in pain, inflamed, just very sick. I've had suicidal thoughts and depression in my life, a pituitary tumor. I've had 2 discs replaced in my neck. I've been through a lot, and coming through this, like, that was the one thing that I really wanted, is vibrancy and energy. Mm-hmm. That was like the resounding answer. Like, there's biohacking and health optimization and, how's your libido and blah, all these things, but like energy covers all of it.
Yeah.
I just want to live a more energized, vibrant life. And so I thought that was the simplest message, and it's my message of transformation, is how I went from a depleted life to something that's just far more exciting. And I'm enthusiastic about where I'm at with my energy, and I just want to pass that on. And the ebook is 99 cents right now. It's in pre-sale, so it's about 90% off. And my hardcover book is $39.99, and it cost me $39.80. Because I wanted to do full color, all these pictures, all the diagrams are just amazing. So I went all in on the cost, and hopefully people appreciate that. But there's also a fasting for energy guide that I've just finished, and a hidden chapter on natural movement. All that's free. So it's, if you think about all that you're getting for 99 cents, pretty good deal. I really just want to pass this message on and heal people and change lives. And it's literally 20 years of all the discoveries, all the research, all the pain, all the frustration, the ups and downs, the medical journey, the plant medicine journeys, the supplements, the exercise, all the things that I've been through to try and find my answers is now in this book. And I'm so proud of it.
Yeah, well, you should be. And you should also be, and also be very proud of the journey. Right. I think one of the things that's great about the book is we don't hear a lot of men talk about poor body image, like that whole, like you have quite a story as a young person who overcame those body image issues that turned into self-esteem and morphed into all that stuff. And the mental health aspect, guys typically are not as prone to share, and you've done such a beautiful job of laying out that journey. So maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, because we definitely want to get into the book. But I think every time one of these books comes out from someone like you, whose persona in the world is capable, successful, brilliant, accomplished, like all of these amazing things. And everybody just assumes, oh my God, he's got his shit completely together and this is so amazing. And today that may be true, but the journey to get here there were repeated kind of not insignificant hurdles along the way that you overcame. And it's the whole idea of your story woven through this kind of roadmap for how people themselves can address their own journey that I find so incredibly powerful. So maybe take us through a little bit of it. I think it's a really great story. I loved reading. I was like, I'm just going to skim it. And then I just kept getting sucked into reading the whole thing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I weave in a lot of my personal story and my transformation and my journey in there, along with all these cool biohacks, all the health advice and tips, and I have surveys and, like I said, diagrams and hundreds of citations, and there's a lot of like great practical stuff you can use. And then there's chapter summaries in there, so it's just everything you need to get going is in there. But I did want to share my story because I felt like it would connect. And that was actually 2019. I kind of took a leap of faith that I was speaking at KetoCon, and I decided like a couple days before KetoCon, I was going to switch up my presentation entirely. I was up until that point, I was talking about mitochondrial health and immune health and all these supplements. Ones that connected to my story about, again, energy, is when my immune system crashes, like especially when I'm traveling, when I'm stressed, I am on the floor, I am in bed for days. And so I've learned all the tips and tricks to kind of work around that. And then with mitochondrial health, same thing. Like that's, something I look to maximize my cellular energy, because again, I can feel down and depleted and depressed and fatigued. And so I had a presentation on all these things, but I never connected it to a story.
Wow.
And why? And so I was struggling with this idea of telling my story in front of all these people that I felt like had come there for science and, don't want this crap from me. And also I was worried about, making myself that vulnerable, that transparent.
Sure.
And maybe a lot of people would reject that. As to your point, as a man, this is a struggle, that we're taught to suppress things. We're taught to tough it out. Don't be weak. Don't be gay. Like I'm saying, quote unquote, if you can't see me right now.
Yeah, he had his fingers up, guys. So,
there's so much pressure to suppress emotional pain, trauma, our stories, and just push through it. That's really unhealthy. And so for me, I decided to tell my whole story in this presentation and give my why about these supplements. So at least half the presentation was about how I got sick and how I had disordered eating a lot of my life, and I hated my body dysmorphia, and disordered eating. I went from being a junk food junkie as a kid that grew up in a chaotic home and was bullied at school and was morbidly obese, 300 pounds, 6'2", to then going to about 150 pounds, anorexic, hating my body all the time. There's no point where I loved my body during this.
Yeah.
And I remember peeing and then weighing myself after I peed so I could see if I weighed a little less, because I was just chasing a number on a scale, and I could see all my bones, and I was just getting so unhealthy. People called me Skeletor now instead of calling me fat ass before, because I had a large rear end, which made it even harder. Men that don't have like the typical android fat distribution, it's atypical, and I was made fun of for that. And so all of that was difficult, and I ended up, obviously working hard in school and doing well, but I learned to either hide myself away or be self-deprecating and kind of be a clown. And those are all ways to deal with this.
Yeah.
But, wasn't long that my immune system crashed, and I had Epstein-Barr virus and fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Hashimoto's, and I was shutting down. And then I was in bed for 6 months and sick. And that's when I stumbled into keto. And that's when I started looking at immune supplements and not just sports nutrition and things like that. And then when I got a job at Dymatize, which was my dream job as a director of R&D, I was in the industry now. I had moved away from just being a clinician as a chief clinical dietitian in hospitals and nursing homes. And I got a brain tumor and a pituitary adenoma. And again, that was my life saying like, hey, like you're pushing too. I was always doing 80 to 100 hours a week. I was always hating myself and pushing. At that point, I had bouts of orthorexia where I was working out 4 hours a day and, all these kinds of things. Like at no point that any body type did I love myself.
Yeah, that's crazy because you describe your body type at that point like you're ripped, right? Mm-hmm. So first you go through this crazy body dysmorphia as a young person, again, which is not a story we hear a lot from men, right? From the overweight, from the obese piece to the anorexic, we don't hear that much. Then when you came out of that, like you yourself say, like you were ripped and yet you still weren't happy. And so, and again, like we can see this in the evolution of the book. It talks about nutrition, it talks about exercise, but then you get into the growth hacks, you get into the mindset, you get into the spiritual piece, you get into the, what's this really all about? So yeah, mitochondria are probably the stars, but the underpinning, which I really love how you work your way through the book in this, the underpinning of this is, you know what, guys, until I looked inside and learned to love me and fix me, none of this other stuff really, it works, but it doesn't anchor and it's almost not as lasting.
Right.
So again, that was quite the journey. But let me ask you something about with the autoimmune disease, when you talk about that piece of it, how much of it, because I see a lot of it in the community that I manage, how much of it would you say at that point was really rethinking the nutrition, the lifestyle, and those underpinnings that helped you to pull out of that? Because people go to supplements, drugs, low dose naltrexone, like whatever it is. And how much do you think for you really came from this whole stopping, readdressing your foundations, your nutrition, the keto diet, that whole 9 yards? Do you think helped you through that?
I think it's significant, obviously. But it's only been like maybe a year ago that I discovered self-love, like really self-love. And that was from Plant Medicine Journeys. And it led to me rewriting this book a few times because up until that point, all these biohacks were about a way to survive.
Right.
It wasn't as much thriving. It was me surviving my self-loathing, self-hatred, working 80 to 100 hours a week, chasing achievements, chasing the next level. Achievement was how I thought I could earn love. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, my whole life, I've never known real love, like how to interact with a person on a loving level. And again, going back to maybe with boys and men, like it's not fostered very well. I'm a loving person and I give out loving energy and compliments, but I had a hard time receiving it. I had a hard time like fostering it long term.
Sure.
And so, deficits came up in my life and my health. And I do think I had to put all the other pieces together to establish some level of foundation. But obviously the better foundation is the self-love. That's where it should start. And then you can do all these, tricks and tips and hacks and all these different things. But for me at that point, that's what I had to do. And keto and paleo helped me heal my body from what I was doing to it. And maybe being in bed for 6 months helped too,
sure.
Taking that break, even though I felt sick, even though I felt suicidal. I've been suicidal several times in my life, very depressed. And that's something that I shared in that presentation I was alluding to in 2019 for the first time.
And did
And
you get a standing ovation?
I did.
Uh-huh.
I had people come up to me crying, and it was super cathartic for me because, up until that point, I felt like a dissonance in my persona of like what I was presenting on stage, on social media. You if you want to be an expert, this is even different from being an influencer. Yeah, influencers like put a
Yeah,
filtered version of themselves out there, but it's deeper than that.
for sure.
It's like, I'm supposed to be an expert. I'm supposed to be a scientist. I'm supposed to be living what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling. I was hurting. Uh, I was dying inside at times. I was pushing myself to the limit, and I had still thought about suicide on occasion. And so, and I struggled with my weight at times when I was depressed. Like, I knew all the things to do. I'm a scientist. I know all the stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not someone that's putting something fake out there by any means, but I felt that dissonance,
Mm-hmm.
and it hurt inside. So going on stage and telling that story about how I struggle, and the reason that I am so passionate about
Yeah.
this topic, the reason I am an expert is because I've been through all this. The reason I'm giving you all this information is so it can save you from all the pain I've been through. And I deeply care about saving you from the pain and potentially ending your life that I've been through, or at least living a hollow, hurting life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that became my purpose. And to give people my why really transformed how I was received and how I received myself, like just giving myself that, like giving myself grace, and, shedding that dissonance that felt inauthentic, to stand in your truth and know that, in my talk, I literally talked about my broken is my beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, it became my story. It is my why. It's my empathy. It's the reason I connect with you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be standing on this stage if it wasn't for all that stuff. I wouldn't be talking to you, Natalie, right now if it wasn't for all that stuff. So I don't want to wish it away. The obstacle is the way. I don't want the shortcut. I don't want no obstacle to be there. Like, I want the obstacle there. I'm proud of the obstacle. I'm proud of my wounded Puma entrepreneur energy that I had for so many years, that I somehow got through all that and I achieved all the things I did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a different place now. I don't regret any of it. I don't hate any of it. I love that I did that. I'm proud of myself for doing all that. That took a hell of a lot of resolve and drive. But I'm just at a different point now where I'm like, what do I do now? Okay, I know that. That's who I was. Who do I evolve into now? And I want to just step into my truth and help people heal myself, have that more solid foundation of self-love, and get through that. And now, instead of the word inner work and self work and all that stuff, has kind of triggered me a little bit, because I've spent most of my life working and sacrificing and grinding.
Yeah.
And grinding means ultra sympathetic. Grinding means heating up and pieces breaking off and smoke. And I don't want to be there anymore. I don't want to just hustle and grind. Yes, occasionally you have to hustle, but hustle and flow. I want
Absolutely. Yeah.
to get to my flow states, and I want to shine and be the greatest expression of myself in these flow states. Be proud of that, exemplify love. And that's where I'm trying to get to now. So instead of self work or inner work, I'm trying to do self play and inner play,
Mm-hmm.
and know that I was born perfect, and I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to hack anything. I do struggle with the word biohacking. That triggers me a little bit too.
Does it?
Even I'm known as a biohacker, because it's like wanting to cut something out, to fix something, to get the quick fix. Like somehow I'm imperfect, and I believe that I'm perfect in all the ways that you can call me flawed or amazing or brilliant or less than. Those all make me unique.
Mm-hmm.
I get the idea of optimization, but it's bio-individual optimization. What's optimization for me, where I'm at in my journey, even beyond epigenetics, like where am I as a human being, and what is it I'm trying to accomplish to get to that truest expression of myself, the highest form of truth for myself. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish. That's the journey I'm on now. And it's no more the slogging grind of sacrifice, of like gutting it out for years and decades to get somewhere and heads down, and then you might have a heart attack, or then you might be 90 years old and like, where did your life go?
Yeah.
But it's also not like quick fixes and hacks and like, how do I like go through a quick amount of pain to just fix this part of me as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the middle of mindfulness, of basking in the true beauty of my life and existence and friendships and connection. And then, yes, I'm optimizing as I go. As I go through this journey, I see, how can I experience more of this?
Mm-hmm.
How can I have a little less of that if I explore this? And that's where I'm at.
That's amazing. And I do love that distinction. And, I think the term biohack, it's become a catch-all phrase, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that people in the business, if you will, or people in this space is probably a better way to put it. When we're working with people to help them achieve the highest expression of themselves, be that physically or mentally, it's putting that term into a better context, so that you're not biohacking instead of, you're not biohacking to get around something, you're building on a foundation. And so then the biohacks, if you will, become an addendum there. It's like a supplement. It's an additional piece to maybe help you on that journey, or all of it. To your point, the bioindividuality means that everybody's body is better at doing something than others. And so there are tools available to us, which I want to get to, because there are tools available to us that ultimately help our bodies we fill the gaps where, for whatever reason, whether it's because of our history, our current health, our stage in life, our genomics, whatever the case may be, you could use this little trick as a way to kind of make up for a chink in the armor, if you will. So
exactly. And I've been playing with the term, because just because I'm triggered by something doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
Once you get into the plant medicine space or the therapy space, which is ultimately the same thing, you start breaking down ego constructs to get to what's your truth.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there is no the truth. There's my truth.
Sure.
We're projecting all the time. We're projecting our reality. Just like hurt people.
Yeah.
We do that all the time. And don't take anything personal is one of the 4 agreements. I've also learned that I project out compliments and love, but I didn't receive it. And that was actually a powerful lesson for me to realize, to drop in my name in a compliment I gave someone else, and realize that I'm projecting. And why don't I allow myself to receive that? Because that's my beauty that I'm projecting on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
That's my love I'm projecting on someone else, but I think I'm not deserving of it, to let it reflect back on me. So that's been a powerful lesson. But exploring things that trigger you is powerful as well. And that's something that you learn in the plant medicine space, to have like that patience and say, why does that trigger me?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Like, is there an unresolved trauma or micro trauma there? And let's explore that. And for me, I told you about how I was just, hating myself and my body and driven with work. So words like work and hacking, like, they're triggering me. But I have worked on that word and even put it in the book. I took the 2 mashup terms, biohacking,
Mm-hmm.
hacking biology, and then hacktivism, which is hacking for the social good, like Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Anonymous, some of these groups that were hackers, yes, but they were doing it for social activist reasons.
Yeah.
And then I paired these two words together because I always felt like biohacking is so N of one, is so quantified self.
Yeah.
It never meant anything about like the world around you.
Like the collective. Yeah.
Yes. And so I like this idea of biohacktivism where I am improving and optimizing myself so I can thrive, so I can be more active and interactive with the world around me. And I can have a greater impact on the world around me. That's my goal is to create change, to have impact as I'm optimized. I believe that you're in the right place, right time, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We say like we're waiting for that moment. We're waiting if we're, a woman, I often hear this, like I'm waiting for that guy, that perfect guy, that doctor that walks through the door and he's funny and he's rich and you're waiting for something that, may never come. You're waiting, you're hoping that a savior changes you. You need to be the change that you want to see in the world. Yeah. If you want that high vibe, amazing human being, be that high vibe, amazing human being. You'll only get treated as good as you treat yourself. So treat yourself a hell of a lot better. If anyone talked to you like you talk to you, you wouldn't be their friend.
Yes.
So let's change the self-talk. Let's change the inner critic. Let's change the imposter syndrome. One of my major shifts when I was in all these rooms with millionaires and billionaires and like entrepreneur masterminds I'm in, or when I'm in the room with these brilliant PhD researchers and scientists and medical doctors and all this stuff that I get in the rooms with, I'm hitting, 7 figures now in my journey. I'm a biochemist, but I have my master's, and that there's ways that like I'm ahead of other people, but I can let the imposter syndrome creep in where I'm like, I'm not close to these guys. Or when I hear like in a mastermind, someone's got 1 million followers or, all these different ways where I'm blessed, I have abundance, but I somehow get into a room and I start talking to myself like I'm less than.
Sure.
Here's the thing, in real estate, like where, it's better to have like the worst home in the best neighborhood.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah. You want the smallest, crappiest house on the street.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And so I started getting proud of the rooms I'm in and saying, you know what? I'm a fucking badass because I'm here. I'm fucking here. And I look around and like, all these people are amazing. That means I'm amazing. I am here. I'm supposed to be here. I manifested this. I'm incredible. They see it. I see it. Screw that talk of like, I'm not good enough. I'm less than. I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be here. That's garbage.
Yeah. No, good for you. Well, I can hear the second book already taking shape, Shawn. I'm serious. It's like, it's as you finish this book, and now talking to you, I can feel that next wave coming from Shawn Wells. But let's talk about the current wave because we're here. Yeah. And to your point, people who, whether it's women or men or anybody sitting and waiting for, you're not living your life now. And actually that speaks a little bit to part of your journey where that first doctor who drew out that timeline on a piece of paper and put your age at the time, 20 to 80, and drew a line between them and said, okay, dude, why wouldn't you enjoy all of the time between these 2 points? Which kind of literally, it was like a light bulb going off in your head when you talk about that moment, which is ultimately what allowed you to take those steps to do what you needed to do to appreciate where you were and live where you are, even though there was a lot of you still had a ton of difficulty in whatever getting there. But the idea of not waiting for the right thing, but just doing the thing and living your life and growing and learning as you go, so that you're experiencing all of that life and not just watching it pass you by as you just wait for that right thing to come along. And I think that in and of itself is a really powerful message. And it's that message of continuing on the march. And, I'm going to bring it back to the book now, because now people are going to be sitting there thinking, oh, well, this book's just like a self-help book and Shawn's story. And guys, it is that, but it's so much more. And there's a lot of nuts and bolts in this book that you can use, which I
Yep.
think is really important. And I think that's part of it. That's part of the keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep making changes to your nutrition, to your exercise, to your routines, to your supplements. Don't wait for your health. Like, don't do one thing and wait for your health to like transform all of a sudden. It's this whole idea of this transformative, continuous process that we all undertake as we're, moving along this continuum of from, depending on what your health is today, like of existing towards living and ultimately towards thriving. So kind of that world, right?
Exactly. And so I should go back and say that the energy formula is an acronym, and it's for
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
So experiment, I get into bioindividuality, biohacking, epigenetics, blood work, all those kinds of things. Then nutrition is the N, and I get into how to execute on paleo, keto, carnivore, vegan, Mediterranean, all those things. Get into polyphenols and sirtuin activation, and then exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about exercise snacks and how actually moving your body is like throughout the day is becoming more important in research than just having like 45 minutes or an hour of focused workout where you're sedentary the rest of the day. Get into things like high intensity interval training, blood flow restriction, intraset stretching, a lot of the new techniques that are really incredible, and recovery even, and what that looks like. A lot of times we use the word overtraining when really it's about under recovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then getting into routines, morning and nighttime routines, circadian rhythm, sleep hygiene, the correct eating window for you according to like Dr. Sachin Panda's data, eating during that daylight window and how that works with your circadian rhythm. Then into growth, and I talk about the growth mindset, stoicism, the obstacle is the way, like Ryan Holiday, like I alluded to, but also getting into nootropics, CBD, MCTs, and all the different, brain boosters. And then also intermittent fasting and extended fasting, and how that works, how that can enhance your not only longevity, but brain function with elevated ketones. And lastly, I get into your tribe, the why, which is the community, the connection, the blue zones. And I like that the book kind of goes in that order of like, you were just alluding to, is like almost like the next wave. It's setting up the next wave, because it starts the most technical and probably gets maybe a little bit more woo as it goes. But like the whole thing is all science-based. I have, 120 at least citations. There's about 60 full color diagrams. There's surveys in each chapter, so you can assess your baseline and where you're at now. I get into, there's formulators corners and resource hacks in each chapter. So the formulators corners gets into the type of supplement you can use in each chapter that's related to that chapter.
Yeah.
And then resource hacks gets into like all the devices, apps, techniques, things like box breathing and how to activate the vagus nerve, and, sleep hacks like how to use mouth tape.
Yeah.
And, using things like Blinkist as an app, for reading, and all kinds of stuff that I get into in there. There's just so many easy, practical, cheap things. I'll save you tons of money. Right at the beginning, I get into how to save money and buy a good supplement.
Yeah. And I love that about the book. I have to say, one thing I'm going to cut in there and say is that, it's not a book where you need to have a budget sitting on the sideline so that you could even begin to make use of it. What I love one of the many things I love about this book is that for someone who's got limited funds, spend the $40 on the book or get the 99-cent ebook. There are a million things you can do out of here without ever having to. There's definitely, you talk about the fancy toys and cool tech, but you don't have to. Those are nice to haves. The fundamental reality is you can do a HIIT workout with yourself in a rock. I mean, if you happen to be able to afford a Carol bike, that's super awesome, but you don't need it. Right. And even the supplements that you talk about, you're not necessarily talking about these crazy expensive, out of reach supplements. Creatine, not an expensive supplement, not particularly, out of reach for anybody. And yet all of the different ways it can be used and can be useful to the body. So, and then on the diet side, again, like you even go as far as to say, look, guys, you can even go to Costco if you need to. Like there's many different ways to skin this cat. And you really do a nice job of laying it out for people. And, from the free zone to the, okay, I got some money I want to spend on a new toy. Here's where you're going to go kind of thing.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I'm super proud of that I wanted to make this. There's a lot of hardcore biohackers out there that have amazing books, and I call them my friends.
Sure.
And I think everyone knows who, those, 2, 3, 4 people are. But, they do like enemas, on the floor, and they do, injections all day long, and they have like $100,000 devices sitting like next to their desk. And that's all awesome. Like I definitely, as someone who is in my position, I definitely look at that and I'm like, oh, cool. What are they doing? Like, that's awesome. Yeah. But I made this book so that doesn't add to overwhelm. That doesn't add stress to anyone reading this. And one of the biggest themes throughout the book to create energy is resilience that I talk about. And so I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to grow your stress bucket. We have a bucket that allows for physiologic and mental stress. And that bucket is called your allostatic load.
Yep.
And it's not a fixed bucket in terms of its size. When we have hormetic stresses, when we have stresses that allow for the agitation, allows for adaptation, we can grow that bucket. There's a certain amount of stress that's good stress. That's called eustress, EU stress.
Yep.
And not distress. When we cross that threshold, things start becoming distress. Just like an antioxidant can become a pro-oxidant, or something like inflammation can be healthy to trigger the immune system and healing, but too much can be damaging. Or blood sugar, being elevated, that's good. Insulin, grabs it. We can use it for fuel. But if it's elevated too long, that's glycation and damage and advanced glycation end products. And all these things, like it's a matter of how much, how often, right? So going back to that idea of overtraining or under recovery, that kind of concept, there's a certain amount of stress that can be good stress, hormetic stress. And that also applies to your type of thinking, your mindset, and that stoic mindset, that obstacle is the way mindset, the glass is half full mindset of optimism, or this is going to be something that brings out strength in me, that allows me to discover myself, my own skills and creativity, my problem solving, who I really am. It allows me to discover my why through this mindset. So this is like and resilience is obviously very key right now with all these viruses and all this discussion, all the stress of being at home, depression, suicide, all-time highs. Obviously, people getting sick with viruses, all-time highs. If we were more resilient, that would be much lower. I believe that we should expand our capacity to be more resilient. In other words, harder to kill.
Yeah.
That's the idea, is be harder to kill. This is going to sound crazy, but this is how I would describe this. Is like if I see someone that may be under the weather or, like maybe slightly sick, that doesn't worry me. Like when I was growing up, when people sneezed or coughed or whatever, I wouldn't like freak out or run. Fear lowers your immune system by 50%.
Absolutely.
If I am in a healthy state and they are moderately unhealthy, I consider it taking my immune system to the gym. I'm getting an immune system workout. I want to interact with their microbiome. I want to interact with these microbials and viruses and bacteria and these pathogens so I can be healthier. It's training my immune system. It's increasing my resilience. It's increasing my allostatic load. When we remove ourselves from interacting with microbiomes and interacting with pathogens and interacting with other people and being lonely and not getting oxytocin and being in a fear state, when we're removing ourselves like that, then we're ripe for viruses. Then we're ripe for getting sick. Then we're ripe for depression and suicidal thoughts and harming others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead, and yes, if I was sick, if I was immunocompromised, I would not interact with those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would be conscious of them and conscious of me. But that's a different story. That's a different story. But you can't, that's kind of the overtraining or under recovered scenario. If I'm not feeling well and then I'm getting around other people not feeling well, then that can be a distress.
Yeah.
But if I get around someone who's not doing great, but I'm doing great, that can be a eustress for my immune system. That can increase my allostatic load. So it's very weird, like the way we're thinking about this of, again, waiting for our saviors instead of fixing ourselves. We're waiting for the vaccine. Save me, vaccine.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point. And I think that's, again, it's the big value of a book like this, helping people to take charge of their health and raise the bar. I think that's what a lot of people in our space have been talking about for the last year, and sometimes getting criticized for it. But ultimately, it's about each individual's responsibility to raise the bar on their own health and function. And your book, and as I said to you at the beginning, it should almost be a workbook, or maybe there's a workbook that needs to come out of it, because it's literally this step-by-step process. Okay, guys, we're going to start. We're going to get rid of processed foods, and here's why they're no good for you. Talking about bliss points, talking about how foods have been engineered, talking about a few of the supplements that can help, like literally helping people to raise that bar. Because to your point, if we're all in a balanced state, in a state of function, like even basic function, but definitely having inflammation in the right place, having immune function that's balanced, having all those things, we're ultimately in a much better place to withstand all of these crazy storms that we seem to be surrounded now, whether it's the virus as it exists today or the next variant that's going to come around the corner. And frankly, even for people who are who believe that they want a vaccine, having a more balanced immune system, being in a stronger state yourself, is going to put you in a place where you can withstand whatever that vaccine brings on. You'll have a better immune response to it. So, not to say that everybody should or shouldn't get a vaccine. These are personal decisions. These are decisions people have to make for themselves. But no matter what your decision is in this space, it's about getting yourself to a place where your body is resilient enough to deal with whatever's getting thrown at it.
Agreed. Obviously, the more resilient your immune system, the better you are at maximizing that vaccine if you get it. Mm-hmm. They've shown that people that are immunocompromised, or people that are in fear states, or in states where they're compromised mentally, they become less effective. So, agreed. Whether you're into taking the vaccine or not, you should definitely find ways to make yourself more resilient. And then some of those things, are things like taking IV vitamin C or liposomal vitamin C, or N-acetylcysteine, or I mentioned AHCC, or certain mushrooms and things like that. But there's also some very simple biohacks of like going back into time, going back into ancestral connection, what we were meant for. I mean, we were animals that were naked years ago, that were out in the elements of the world. And now we think it's natural that we're in our artificial boxes, wearing our artificial things on our bodies, watching artificial people on an artificial screen with artificial ground underneath us, with artificial light above us. And we're saying how natural all this is.
Yeah.
Really. And it seems so weird to go out into the grass with your bare feet, to breathe the fresh air, to feel the sunshine, to interact with the trees and the plants, to have that carbon dioxide oxygen exchange, and to make that vitamin D, and to get those ions from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And really, so, that's what we were evolved for. But somehow being in this box, watching someone else's reality is what's natural. Like, that seems very odd to me. Like, and it's literally like we are watching something else in a game, in a movie, in a TV show, on YouTube, on an app, and we're not living our own lives. I mean, I'm not saying any of that stuff is bad, just like social media is not bad. Like, any of these things aren't necessarily bad, but there's a huge disparity of we're living distracted lives and not living in the moment with mindfulness, not being present, not interacting on deep levels with these incredible relationships that we can have around us. Just liking someone's post or making a quick emoji comment is not a deep relationship. And that's what I get into in your tribe, like how impactful that is. You're the product of the 5 people closest to you. Yeah. So how deep and how thoughtful is that connection? How important is that tribe to you? How much are you cultivating that and curating that? That needs to be a conscious decision of these people that are close to you. It can't just be people that are there because you went to school with them, or because they're family, or because they're neighbors, or like, it's a conscious decision. You say, like, I want to be this. Who's the best person I know at that? I'm going to put them in my life. And a really important piece here is you don't just use people. You don't just say, hey, I want something for nothing. A really great relationship is a give and take one.
Sure.
And you need to be a go-giver and not just a go-getter. Yeah. And that's important, that we create value for the people around us and that these things are fostered. You want to be mentored, start mentoring. It's very important for this process.
Yeah. Well, it's that whole world of mutual exchange and, frankly, of getting as much value out of giving as you're getting out of getting, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing, I mean, I've always said, there's nothing better than giving good gift, even when it comes down to gift giving, right? Like, how much pleasure do you get when you give something to someone? And it could be nothing, next to nothing, but it's that one thing that person needed, whether it's an item or a compliment or help when they needed it. There is nothing like the endorphin rush you get from giving that to someone else, quite apart from the value you give them, right? So I do think that's a cool thing. So, okay, so we've been talking a lot. People still don't really, like, we've given people so much to think on, and there's a few little, let's call them little tangible.
Yeah, let's get into the hacks. Let's get into
a few of the hacks, because there's a couple of, and I'm going to go to the supplements, because look, guys, here's the news. When it comes to diet, eat whole foods, the whole 9 yards, whatever you pick as your perfect, and the distinction between diet and lifestyle, moving away from changing the way that you eat, from thinking of it as an intervention versus as an evolution of a way of being so that it becomes a part of you moving forward. That concept is beautifully illustrated and described in the book. So I encourage you to spend some time on that piece of it, if that's not something you've already done. But then let's talk about a few of your favorite supplements that I believe you've had a hand in several of them. And one of the ones that I'd love to talk about is the version of berberine that you talk about in the book.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a bit about that? DiHydroBerberine.
Yeah, I just got some study results back on it today. Glucovantage is the brand name.
Where do I get it?
You have patents on it. There's some products out there. There's one by one of my favorite companies, Genius. They make really great products. They're on Amazon. There's a product called Genius Blood Sugar that has this dihydroberberine plus cinnamon. They make, like, I mentioned them in my book a few times. I don't get any money from them. Know that in my book, I get $0 from anyone. Like, all this stuff is like about, I mean, I do have some patents on these things, but I don't even make money off of if they sell more or not. I work with a guy directly and I just help him bring intellectual property to life. So I just think like this is the number one ingredient I would take above all other ingredients. That's why I go deep into it. Because if you look at metformin, metformin's kind of a king of anti-aging because its anti-glycation increases something called AMP kinase.
Yep.
And it's associated with metabolic dysfunction is a massive reason for us aging. And if you take metformin or glucose disposal agents, it's been shown to lower chronically elevated glucose and insulin and glycation end products and inflammation and dyslipidemia and so an amazing ingredient. And berberine is the natural version of metformin. And metformin has actually been shown recently to be tainted and has been pulled from the market, and it creates a B12 deficiency. So berberine actually outperformed metformin head to head on a number of fronts anyway. And then added to that, I'd be taking berberine every time over metformin.
Right.
Now, enter DiHydroBerberine,
Yes.
which is an optimized form of berberine that has much higher bioavailability, because in your gut, berberine converts to dihydroberberine, and then in the plasma converts back to berberine. So what's important there is that studies show that it's up to 5-6x difference in terms of bioavailability. 1, 2, you don't have the GI distress that's common with berberine or metformin. Some people get GI issues from that. And then 3, we're seeing that not only does it peak faster and higher at a much lower dose, but what's cool is it lasts longer. So instead of 3 times a day, we're seeing you just need maybe twice a day. So it's amazing on that front too. It lasts maybe 2x. So it's pretty dramatic.
The dosage is much lower, right? Because berberine, typically we talk about 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And here with the dihydroberberine, you're talking about 150 milligrams, I think, twice a day.
Yep.
Is that
exactly.
right?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's much less. Can we go back to the GI issues with metformin for a second? Because I had heard someone at some point talk about how a theory that they believed that it was causing or forcing a readjustment, a positive, what they thought might be a positive readjustment in the microbiome. So can we talk about that quickly? And also metformin is a double-edged sword. So it has some negative consequences for the ever important, and we started off this podcast talking about them, mitochondria. So,
first off, I agree with you. That hasn't been fully elucidated, but I've had that same theory too about, because if you look at some data with berberine, some people are using it to heal the gut.
Yeah.
And we do know that largely in dysbiosis scenarios, that these bacteria are feeding off sugar. And maybe if you are metabolically dysfunctional, have chronically elevated blood glucose, maybe there is too much sugar hanging around in the gut. Maybe you're dysbiotic. Maybe those people have a greater issue. So type 2 diabetics taking metformin or berberine or whatever may be more predisposed to this GI distress than someone who's maybe lean and using this for anti-aging purposes. So that's interesting to explore. I don't have the answer on that, but I've wondered that myself. The next one where there's some discussion on potentially metformin or even berberine challenging the mitochondria and potentially being counterproductive, I would go back to the theme that you've probably heard throughout this podcast, is that it's about resilience, hormesis, eustress, etc. So there's a certain dose of these things, then we've actually seen enhanced mitochondrial biogenesis. So yes, it's causing mitohormesis.
Yeah.
It's challenging the mitochondria. And just like we see with alcohol, we think alcohol is bad, but 1 to 2 drinks, not bad. And, we see resveratrol present in red wine, xanthohumol in beer. And there's like cardiovascular benefits actually at 1 to 2 drinks. Of course, it's even better if sipped. It's even better with a healthy meal. It's even better in a blue zone when it's over a great conversation with great people.
in
All
natural light.
that matters versus I hate myself. I'm going to have a drink. I need to escape. I'm going to have a drink. Very different. So yeah, that's very hard to tease all that out of alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And also even fundamental metabolic balance, right? Like if you're in a state of balance and you're bringing alcohol in small amounts under the right conditions, it's going to have a very different effect on your physiology than if you're metabolically a mess. You're in that high glycation, like high sugar state, the whole 9 yards, very inflamed, and you bring alcohol in ways that you describe, it's going to have completely different effects on your health.
Right, exactly. So I would say from what I'm seeing with berberine, with metformin, with DiHydroBerberine at these doses that we're discussing,
Mm-hmm.
it is a eustress.
Okay.
And it is helping the mitochondria in terms of its function, its resilience, and then creating new mitochondria. Now, is that going to be true if I double, triple, quadruple the dose? Probably not.
Yeah.
There's some point where you probably pass that threshold and go from eustress to distress, where you're no longer increasing the size of your allostatic load bucket, but instead it's overflowing and it's having physiological consequences.
Okay. So one more question on this, and then we'll move to the next one. So on the DiHydroBerberine, do you still, because it's having this similar kind of hormetic effect, stress effect on the mitochondria, do you still worry at all about taking it around workouts and stuff? Or do you find with the DiHydroBerberine, it's a different compound than metformin, so maybe might not have the same downside? Because I know people, again, argue about this all day long.
Yeah, we don't have that data yet either. But one thing that Peter Attia talked about with there is some animal data that people were concerned about what you're talking about, hypertrophy being limited with this kind of AMPK pathway. But what they found is that the muscle was more dense and that strength was not compromised. There was a little less hypertrophy, but there was the same level of strength. And so to me, I don't know that would be there. And I think what might make sense is that you maybe take it around other workouts other times other than the workout for your twice a day, and just, leave that hour or two pre and post workout, open.
Yeah.
That's probably what I would do, but I know plenty of bodybuilders, this is anecdotal, that are using berberine and DiHydroBerberine and have tremendous results. So I think it's bio-individual. I think that that's something that you can explore for yourself, but as a guess, I would just not put it directly around your workout.
Yeah. And I think that muscular hypertrophy for the average bear is not that big a deal. Give me strong muscles. I don't care if they're that big. Give me strength and function, and I'll leave the mass to someone else. Like, it's just for most people. I mean, if bodybuilders are using it, I would say for the average person, it's just not going to be that much of an issue.
Yeah, because there's some other effects, like, you're enhancing insulin sensitivity, which can help with anabolism. You are doing something called nutrient partitioning with body recomposition, where you're actually creating glucose to be more likely preferentially stored in muscle rather than fat.
Yeah.
There's some things that are happening that are certainly helping the fitness enthusiast side of the equation, and certainly not hurting it by any means. So, yeah.
Lots of positives there. Okay, great. Next one, and mostly because I like the name, Grains of Paradise. Talk to me about that.
That's there's a really cool series of compounds in Grains of Paradise. It's similar to some ginger data, and also cayenne and capsaicin kind of data with the vanillin receptor. It's thermogenic, which is really cool. Increases body heat, increases caloric expenditure. We're seeing at 40 milligrams once a day with zero stimulants in it, that we're seeing increased caloric expenditure of like 120 calories.
Come on, really?
what it does at maybe 80 milligrams, what it does at 80 milligrams twice a day, I don't know. Like, we don't have that data yet. But the way it's working is by upregulating and activating brown adipose tissue. So BAT is
All over that.
fat. And so not all fat is bad. Again, I don't even like the idea that any fat is bad.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea that shaming yourself is bad, or that any piece of us that is this beautiful machine is bad. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
But brown adipose tissue, there's only about 6 or 7 ounces on your body, and it's mostly around your clavicle area, like your neck bone. And the reason that's there is for a few reasons. I mean, one, it's in that location because we were more likely to sustain damage or potentially lose limbs like throughout history. And so a great way to protect our core, our metabolism, and all these things that are so essential to our survival is by having it near the core, near our heart, near our lungs. And so that's why that's there. And then also, up until about 6, 7, 8, 9 months as a baby, we don't have the ability to shiver. And so brown adipose tissue is very necessary to provide heat until we have the ability to shiver as a human. And so it's there for a reason, but we're now discovering that brown adipose tissue may be one of the great, like, holy grail, like a equalizing factors of why some people can eat a bunch of food and seem to stay thin. It may be that they have, one, more brown adipose tissue, and then 2, more active brown adipose tissue. And doing things like cold thermogenesis is going to upregulate brown adipose tissue. So, like, jumping in cold plunges, cold showers, some of those things enhance brown adipose tissue number and activation. And further, if you were to supplement those cold plunges or cold showers or contrasting showers where you go from hot to cold, if you add in grains of paradise to that, then you may augment that effect.
Sign me up. Give meaning to my cold shower. I did a round of cold thermogenesis last fall, and I started in my bathtub at cold water, but then I ended up in the lake because we have a cottage. And so it was fall and the water was starting to come down around somewhere between 50 and 60 degrees. And once I actually got myself into the lake and swam around for 20 to 25 minutes, I couldn't get myself to sit in the tub anymore. Like, I just couldn't, like, psychologically, I just couldn't do it. But the showers are great, but they're nothing like the immersion.
Agreed. That's where, but the showers, I totally agree that the shower is nice when you are someone that's traveling, or you're not near a lake, or you're on the go.
Yeah.
And what I like is adding that Ray Cronise, who is a former astronaut, a NASA scientist, and he came up with that idea of the contrasting back and forth. And I really do like that because that creates a greater delta, right? So that means that, yes, taking a cold shower is a eustress, puts your body under that positive stress, hormetic stressor, but creating that greater delta, kind of like the polar bear club idea, like where you go from hot sauna into the freezing lake, that creates a greater delta on your body. And so if you can go from the hot shower to the cold shower, or the hot sauna to the cold plunge, or whatever it is for you, creating a greater delta is going to create even more of that eustress.
Yeah, I like to think of it. I also think of my cells pumping, like contracting and expanding and contracting and expanding. And your blood vessels would be doing the same. And it's this whole idea of, like, moving lymph, moving all this, nutrients and metabolic waste in and out of cells and through the body. I feel like.
Yeah, because we've become highly thermoregulated in this environment, and it's not healthy. Again, we're not as resilient anymore. We're moving, and we're wondering why we're so prone to getting viruses or other pathogens. We're not as hard to kill as we once were.
Yeah.
And so we're so thermoregulated. We keep our temperature at, 68 to 72 degrees, 24/7, 365 in the places we work, in our cars, in our office. And, at home, like wherever we are thermoregulated instead of dealing with that temperature stress. And there's things that happen that make you adapt, that make you stronger in terms of growth factors, in terms of immunoglobulins, in terms of GH, IGF-1, testosterone, growth hormone. All these things are like literally upregulated in these different scenarios. Brown adipose tissue, like I was saying, that help us survive, that give us more resilience when we're under this type of duress in terms of temperature fluctuation. And it just burns more calories. Your body trying to maintain homeostasis creates calorie burning. Like, you can take shiver walks. That's free too.
Yeah, I've done that. Get crazy looks from my neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. You can, take a walk out in the freezing cold with just your shorts on or whatever. And then, come back in, don't allow yourself to get sick. Again, eustress versus distress, like know where that line is and create more resilience so you have a greater capacity for it over time. But yeah, those are things that are going to make us stronger. And the cool thing is, not only are you physiologically stronger, but you're inherently tied to your mental strength. Yes, exactly. So you're mentally more resilient and vice versa. When we have that growth mindset, we have a greater capacity to deal with physiologic stress. And when we have greater physiologic resilience, we have a greater mental capacity to deal with stress.
Absolutely. Love that. That's so true. That's so true. That's great. Okay, last one. One more. Uno más.
Yes,
I'm going to let you go. Mitoprime. I can't even pronounce this one. I can. Ergothioneine. Ergothioneine.
Yeah.
You're talking about this as an antioxidant post-exercise. So tell us about Mitoprime, tell us about L-ergothioneine, and explain to me this whole antioxidant post-exercise, because we've all been told, no antioxidants post-exercise. You're going to blunt the hormetic effect of the exercise on your muscles. So go.
Yeah, and that's a great question. But I think that's where most antioxidants have failed us. And that's why I get into the power of polyphenols over like typical antioxidants. I go through that quite a bit in the book.
Yeah.
I love polyphenols because they're compounds that have been hormetically stressed, like essentially like it's called xenohormesis, like when they've been through like tough stuff and now they help you get tougher. It's different than these antioxidants that that prevent deficiencies that we weren't meant to take supraphysiologic doses of. Maybe vitamin C you can make the argument of, and I do in the book. But typically those are counterproductive. And so this is different. And ergothioneine was considered for vitamin status, very similar to PQQ, which I discuss in the book. But those are two very cool compounds that we should really be looking at. There's actually a unique ergothioneine transporter in the body. We are meant to have this ingredient in our bodies. And it comes from certain mushrooms, certain beans, and organ meats. But it's in trace quantities. 5 to 10 milligrams is a potent dose. And so what's really cool too, not only do you have a unique transportation system that tells you you're meant to be using this, but you also have unique storage of this ingredient so that your body can utilize it upon demand.
Interesting.
Take one step further, it's not just a cellular antioxidant, it's a mitochondrial antioxidant. It literally protects mitochondria, which is energy, vibrance, and anti-aging. So this is an amazing compound. I feel like it's a huge breakthrough. One of the last compounds I'll mention that's also mentioned in the book is L-Baiba, which
it was on my list.
beta amino isobutyric acid. And it's a signal for intense exercise. When you're intensely exercising, the body breaks down L-valine from the branched chain amino acid pool in the body, right, in your muscles. And when you're intensely exercising, it breaks that down from the muscles. It uses BCAAs for fuel. But when there's more of that L-valine, it takes that L-valine, turns it into L-Baiba. And then that L-Baiba gets seen as a sensor, as a signal in your body that you are intensely exercising. And everything that happens Like you can't even imagine. When I talk about holy grail, it's no marketing exaggeration. Almost everything associated with intense exercise happens as a result of this signal being elevated. So improved VO2 max, improved BDNF, improved bone mineral density, improved muscle mass, reduced fat mass, improved glucose tolerance and glycogen storage, improved mood, and like it goes on and on and on. Like, so taking Baiba, it's in the class known as exercise mimetics, similar
Yeah.
to ACAR or cardarine, which is also known as GW 501516 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
All these compounds are exercise mimetics. Like literally, they'll say exercise in a bottle.
Yeah.
That's not
Only it
really
makes my
FDA.
hair fall out.
Yeah, it's not really FDA compliant. I love the idea of it augmenting your workout, it increasing every rep, every step. And it is safer than any of those compounds because it is the thing your body creates from BCAAs in your muscle. It is a signal that your body endogenously creates. So augment that signal and show your body you're working out even harder so that you get greater adaptation. Maybe that 8 reps is more like 12 reps to your body when you're taking this. So I think these compounds that I'm working on are very transformative, very, very fun
It
as
is.
a
Oh.
chemist, and I'm very excited about. So those are
Yeah.
some of the things I mentioned in the book.
Exactly. These are all in the book, guys. And so the Baiba, is it commercially available yet?
It is. Yep.
It is. You talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And
going
it's called
shopping. I
Mitoburn.
need me some Mitoburn, Mitoprime, DiHydroBerberine, and Baiba.
Yes.
I'm
Get
going.
on it.
I'm going in. Anyway, okay. Well, listen. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface, guys. But I think we're going to wrap this up because people sometimes give me grief because my podcasts get long. But I actually think that long podcasts are the sign of giving yourself permission to be present and take the time to learn about something new. And given the spirit of your book, that's really what it's about. I think presence and giving yourself what you need in the time that you have, that you're in for your next evolution of growth or whatever. I think that's a lot of what the book is about. So once again, I just want to say thank you so much for writing this book and sharing so much of yourself in it. Because on top of that whole piece of it, then the nuts and bolts steps that you take the reader through in every aspect of getting themselves to a better place, both health from a physical health and a mental health perspective, are incredible. The tips on the supplements, the practices, the biohacks, for lack of a better word, the checklists, the diagrams, like you've just made it so easy for people to understand and get their heads around. And some of the information might be stuff that you've seen before, but I'm a huge believer in seeing things from different perspectives because it lands differently for people in every way that you see it, right? So there's lots of new stuff in there that I didn't know. And then there's even concepts that I was already familiar with that you just break down in a very different way. So good job. Congratulations. It's
Thank you.
really
I'll leave
exciting.
you with the last super cheap, super quick hack that will literally transform your life. And 99% of people aren't doing it. They might think it sounds weird, but this smokes even cold showers, is mouth taping.
Yes.
You are breathing in your mouth and out of your mouth way too much. We're not meant to be mouth breathers. We're meant to be nasal breathers. There's filtration that happens there. There's the right heat, warmth. There's the right moisture level that happens with nasal breathing. There's more oxygenation. It's much more efficient. And when we're breathing through our mouths, we tend to be more apneic. We tend to be less oxygenated, especially if you are sleep apneic.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there is any snoring happening or any pauses between breaths happening, then you're in a situation where it really sets you up for a lot of disease and potentially early death. And so you will be shocked at how just taping your mouth, and you can go on Amazon and buy mouth tape that's kind of like paper tape or whatever. It's super cheap to get a roll. And just taping your mouth, you will live longer, feel better, feel more refreshed in the morning. You'll wake up with, for me, it's about 5 hours of sleep equals 8 hours of sleep non-taped. So it's dramatic. And when you start using it, it'll train your body to do this without the tape over time.
Yeah.
Another hack beyond that is do it while you're exercising.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Again, it will train you to be a nasal breather while you're exercising instead of huffing and puffing, with your mouth. And again, you'll see better recovery. You'll see better performance when you're doing that. So play around with mouth taping.
Yeah. No, and one thing on the exercise front is people just be prepared to take a step back on your workouts, because you will not be able to do. I mean, I read Patrick McCann's book last year, and I started on my walks. It's amazing when you realize that we walk around with like sharks with our mouths open all the time, except for a shark, it's necessary. Whereas for us, and when you close your mouth, even the pace at which you walk kind of changes until you adapt. So yeah, I've bought mouth tape recently and suggested it to my husband, and I'm still working on him. That's just
that's great.
Anyway, yeah. So thank you again so much. And I mean, we could clearly keep going and keep dropping gems, but truthfully, people just have to buy the book. Like you said, 99 cents for the ebook. And then the hardcover book comes out on April 1st. Can people place pre-orders for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely pre-orders right now. And you go to energyformula.com. You get the fasting for energy guide right now that breaks down different fasting archetypes, like who you are as your fasting avatar, what type of fast you should be doing. You'll also get the hidden chapter, all for that 99 cents. Energyformula.com. You can follow me at Shawn Wells, ShawnWells on Instagram, and I would love that. And I will answer any questions you have. I love getting questions. I love taking the time to answer them. So please reach out to me, and please support me with the book. I think it's going to change your life. If you're listening, 99 cents, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, no, I will second that, Shawn. Thank you so much. And also for those of you guys who are on Clubhouse, Shawn hosts some of the most amazing rooms. So if, one thing about Clubhouse is you can learn so much from so many great people, and you're definitely one of those people. So thank you.
I'm at Biohacking on Clubhouse, so pretty easy to find me.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Shawn. Have a spectacular rest of the day. It's been a total pleasure.
Thank you. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Thanks, Natalie.
Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of the Biohacking Superhuman Performance Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because that's what helps us to be heard and to be seen. If you'd like to connect with me directly, or if you'd like to leave any comments, or if you have any questions about this episode, please reach out to me directly through my website, natnidham.com. And of course, if you're not already a member of the Biohacking Superhuman Performance community on Facebook, that's where you'll find me every day. It's a short application. Just answer a couple of questions and you're in and interfacing with other amazing biohackers. Thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.